Okay, imagine trying to build a cinematic universe from absolute scratch. We're not just talking about your standard story of good guys punching bad guys, but a sweeping, epic, cosmic narrative deeply rooted in theology, philosophy, and massive universal stakes. Well, welcome to today's Explainer. We are breaking down a really unusual, highly fascinating piece of source material that literally serves as a creative blueprint for exactly that kind of project. We're going to examine the specific creative advice and philosophical frameworks laid out in the text for a Japanese animated film called The Laws of the Universe, The Age of Elohim. As you'll see, the text proposes a total radical reimagining of heroism, morality, and even historical religious figures. Now, to really get this blueprint, we have to look at its wild premise first. The text we're analyzing is actually presented as a spiritual consultation. It explicitly frames its guidance as a channeled interview with the guardian spirit of Stan Lee, the legendary American comic creator, happening right around the time of his passing. Now, whether you view this as a literal spiritual dialogue or just a highly unique narrative framing device, our goal today is to impartially unpack the actual creative advice it delivers. The text basically uses this persona to eject classic American superhero sensibilities into a Japanese cosmic narrative, demanding a much bolder, more complex approach to world building.
So here is our game plan for today. We'll be looking at 1. New cosmic heroes, 2. The philosophy of justice, and 3. Reimagining mythos. All right, let's jump right into part 1, new cosmic heroes beyond the formula.
To build this new universe, the source establishes that fresh characters are an absolute necessity. It actually specifically warns against lazily repeating past character formulas. So note bringing back a previous 5-person team featuring a familiar character named Aisuke, for example. The core argument here is that cosmic threats require cosmic-level defenders, right? The text insists that the creators have to introduce entirely new archetypes who bring unique, specialized skills and extraterrestrial backgrounds to the table. You just can't rely on the comfortable nostalgia of past protagonists. Enter Yaezel, who is pitched as a brand new primary hero. She's a fierce female warrior dispatched specifically from the Vega star system. And she isn't just your generic sci-fi fighter. She is equipped with unique transformation abilities. This is a very deliberate choice to bring a completely new extraterrestrial dynamic to the story, highlighting that Earth's defense is actually just one part of a much larger, interconnected galactic network. The text also dives into highly specialized roles. Take Pangoro, for example. He's a character designed with a singular, localized mission, to be the direct protector of the Earth god. By pairing Vega warriors from deep space with these divine bodyguards, the creators are advised to ground the massive cosmic stakes with highly purpose-driven, localized roles. Literally, everyone has a very specific job in this cosmic ecosystem.
Moving right along to Section 2, the philosophy of justice and evil.
You know, all the punches and explosions in the world don't really matter if the philosophical clash isn't clearly defined. And this breakdown brilliantly illustrates the fundamental war of values at play here. On one side, you have the invaders, identified as reptilians, who operate on a brutal, predatory ideology, survival of the fittest, consuming others, and total dominance by sheer brute force. On the flip side, the Earth's defenders are defined not just by their combat power, but by an ideology of high spiritual enlightenment. Their entire core tenet is self-sacrifice for the sake of justice and protecting their compatriots. Here's the really crucial part. The text defines true heroism as an actual spiritual achievement. Achieving this specific enlightenment to being willing to sacrifice yourself to protect your compatriots is literally what prevents a soul from falling to hell. That's a huge stake. Conversely, those driven solely by self-preservation and selfish desires, they're the ones who fall. So, heroism here is explicitly tied to spiritual purity and selfless action, perfectly contrasting with the selfish, predatory survival of the invaders. To deepen this conflict even more, the text pulls in this really fascinating philosophical metaphor, Robinson Crusoe. It points out that if you are completely alone on an isolated island, the very concepts of good and evil don't even exist. There's literally no one to wrong and no one to help. Good and evil only emerge when we're forced to coexist with diverse beings, the other. The more diverse the beings in the universe, the more complex coexistence becomes. And that is exactly why a cosmic story of this scale requires such a rigorous definition of justice. Which brings us to our final section, reimagining mythos, specifically Jesus and Lucifer. So how do you ground these massive, abstract cosmic stakes for an audience? Well, the source argues you actually have to radically reinterpret some pretty major religious figures. Let's look at Jesus Christ.
The text explicitly argues that in a universe threatened by predatory, planet-consuming evil, a hero cannot rely solely on passive, lukewarm love or unconditional non-resistance. To actively combat a force like the reptilians or a cosmic Satan, the definition of divine love has to evolve into something much more active, forceful, and defensive.
According to the advice in this book, Jesus must be depicted as a fierce frontline defender. The text literally states he has a fierce personality, noting that he's even fiercer and less mild than Buddha. He possesses a wrathful aspect, designed to physically confront malevolent forces and force a massive paradigm shift. It's a completely bold transformation of a figure traditionally associated strictly with peace, turning him into a powerful cosmic warrior.
On the other hand, the text advises making the ultimate villains deeply tragic and psychologically complex. It doesn't just handwave the bad guys, it maps out the psychological descent of Lucifer step by step. He doesn't just start as a monster. He starts by achieving massive success and merit. But that success, it breeds blinding arrogance and pride. That morphs into intense jealousy toward God and his teachings, ultimately leading to a rebellion that triggers the dramatic creation of hell itself. This passage outlines a vision where Lucifer arrogantly proclaims, "My achievements were great," fully believing his individual power trumps absolutely everything else. The text advises creators to ensure the origin of hell isn't just some random piece of background lore. Instead, it needs to be depicted as a dramatic, character-driven tragedy rooted entirely in Lucifer's fatal flaw: his utter refusal to value teamwork and coexistence over his own immense, unchecked ego.
Okay, let's wrap this up. What are our key takeaways here? To summarize, this source material constructs a highly detailed blueprint for a deeply philosophical superhero narrative. By weaving together fresh, specialized characters like Yazael, establishing high-stakes morality based on self-sacrifice, and boldly reimagining historical figures like a fierce Jesus and a tragic Lucifer, it really pushes the boundaries of traditional anime storytelling straight into the realm of cosmic theology. Which leaves us with a really fascinating question to ponder about world building and storytelling. When the stakes are literally the survival of a planet against a brutal predatory force, where exactly should the line be drawn between passive, unconditional love and the fierce, active justice required to protect the innocent? It's a pretty compelling thought to end on. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the blueprints behind the stories we consume.